Welcome to the Filmsteins, a double feature podcast. Join us as we unravel the interwoven experience of the continuous conversation of cinema. If you like what you hear, support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Filmsteins. Come right in, come request a film, grab some popcorn, sit back, and get ready to join the 100-year conversation. This is the Filmsteins, where movies are more than just entertainment, they're an experience. And welcome back to another episode of the Filmsteins. Thank you guys for joining us today. Today I am joined by my happy friend, Lucy.
Hello, everyone.
Remember, you can join us every Monday and Friday for brand new episodes of the Filmsteins on all of our free feeds. And every other Wednesday on patreon.com/Filmsteins for Patreon exclusive episodes, like our recent exclusive episode where we talked about the two Aladdin films from 1992 and 2019. Some other recent episodes include Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Beetlejuice, and the original Beetlejuice, Borderlands, and the 2016 Suicide Squad. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas on our Patreon as well. Come subscribe, come write in, come request a film. Go rate us on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to our YouTube. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much.
Are you stressed and filled with anxiety like I am? Maybe in a bit of pain from that car accident you had a few years ago? Well, the sponsor of today's episode, Hempville CBD, has us covered. They have the highest quality products created by chemists and doctors. Hempville carries everything from CBD to THC dispensary grade without those despicable dispensary prices. Order your Delta 8, 9 edibles and vapes along with the THCA flower and get free shipping when you spend $50 or more at hempvillecbd.com. Check out the link in the description for more details.
But today we will be talking about Todd Solondz' 1998 film, Happiness. I just wanted to start off by saying that I'm glad you could finally see this film. This is a film that everyone must watch at some point in their life. There's a lot to love about this film, but I think my favorite element of this is this razor-thin walk of feeling like a Full House episode or kind of show, or even these funny little elements that we see in the Yakuza games, the Like a Dragon games. If you know, you know. At the end of every side quest, you'll have this twinkle music set in and a lesson is learned. And in Happiness, you feel like a laugh track is going to break out at any moment. And it's this wonderful, edging, teasing feeling, which I think complements this so-called kind of irony, behind closed door kind of conversation. But I'm very curious how you feel about Todd's magnum opus. Maybe. It's a great film. A lot of his movies are similarly charged, too. I've seen all of them, actually. This is your first Todd Solondz film. It is quite the movie. What do you think?
Yeah, man, I'm also curious about how I feel about this film. Immediately, this did not feel like my type of film with that whole introduction scene with Andy and Joy. And this movie was really hard for me to analyze and think about because on a surface level, going into the film, this movie felt very long, like a bunch of nothing. None of the characters were relatable or likable. And of course, it covers some really dark subjects, taboo subjects, disgusting subjects, with no real resolution towards them. And not that I need a happy ending in my film, of course, but I guess I at least need something to take home. I need a take-home message in my films. And I was a bit lost on what the message was here. Besides, don't be a suburban, middle-class, white family. But again, that was all very surface level. That was all very immediate. And I'm hoping we can break down some of the reasons why things felt like that for me, or what I should be feeling instead of bored. Because this film has a very ironic title. Happiness, this is not happiness, of course. And I do like this premise that all these characters give the illusion that they're happy, but deep inside they're not. They're deeply unhappy, deeply depressed. And there were quite a few interactions that made me laugh, which makes sense because of my type of humor. But honestly, I was very bored at times. This film was about 2 hours, 19 minutes, which is important here, at least. Because we do need to create this tension and this uncomfortability So I understand the importance of making this a slow burn kind of film, but I don't know if it crossed that a little too much for me. Like, okay, I get it. And I'm also not sure if this is a me problem, but I didn't feel any empathy for the characters. And this is a very character heavy film. The characters felt a bit too exaggerated for me and didn't let me form any kind of connection with them, which I also think is important because these characters are obviously struggling with something in their lives. And there's something there with the audience not needing to know why they feel the way they feel, but just kind of watching them feel the way they feel. So something about that made me not truly care for them like I feel like I should have. But then again, the amount of details that went into the characters really impressed me. There were little hints and bits and pieces here and there about each of the characters that I really appreciated. I give them kudos for that. And the performances were great. They did a phenomenal job of making me feel weird and making all this feel unnatural. But like you said, even though it was shot not unnatural, it was shot like a sitcom. But none of this gave me the happy feelings that a show like Full House gives me. Because instinctively, I want to say these performances felt kind of fake because who acts like this in real life? And I know we see a lot of things that we're not supposed to be seeing. Like when Alan is calling people, he's naked in his room, he's trying to get off on I don't know exactly what, but that's something that people aren't seeing. So it makes sense for something like that to feel fake to me. But there are other instances when people are actually interacting with each other, like when Joy is at work and she's crying, and other people are like, "Oh no, why are you crying?" They're like, "Oh, that Andy guy died, and I just went on a date with him." They're like, "Who?" It's like, what? Who acts like this? And then they're like all gossiping and whispering and stuff, and it just feels so exaggerated to me. But then I can also see that being an example of how insignificant we are. No one really remembers who you are. I don't know. But there's definitely a lot in this film. It's going to take some breaking down to truly know how I feel about this movie, because my initial thoughts were not good.
Well, I think you're hitting on one of the more fundamental launching points of what even inspired the film, and it is that sitcom, super family friendly kind of Full House oriented show. Because you'll say the same thing about people like Uncle Jesse, Danny, and Joey, who acts like them. And so Happiness is kind of in a nutshell a deconstruction of the artifice of what we're kind of chasing. And the film is in itself sort of a mirror held up to the audience of the gross, disgusting kind of perversions we will put ourselves through, self-destructive kind of things, to achieve what we think happiness is. Not to say everyone's a voyeuristic mega pervert, borderline rapist, a murderer, a pedophile.
Right, because our main characters here, our main focus is really the family, Joy's family.
The three sisters.
The three sisters, yeah. And how all these characters around them interact with them.
Yeah, it brings a ecology that I really love. We see this full circle play out where all the tangents kind of meet up with one another.
To back that up a little bit, I like what you said about who acts like these Full House characters, because you have a good point there. Who acts like them? Who is always hugging and like it's almost intoxicating, that kind of behavior on those shows. But to me, and maybe a lot of people out there, but specifically to me, coming from a different culture, a different background, immigrating to the US with my parents, that's how I thought white people were. That's how I thought Americans were. They acted like this.
And the presence of that mindset, I think, helps beg for something like this to be made to kind of neutralize that mindset. Not that this is going to be anywhere near the size of a Full House.
Right. And both of those scenarios, even though they feel like polar opposites of each other, they're both still kind of cringy. They're both still kind of exaggerated and extra, and both make you feel a little uncomfortable. Although this made me feel a lot more uncomfortable than Full House episodes, just because of really the pedophile dad. I think everyone else didn't make me feel as uncomfortable as he did. For
Yeah,
sure.
that's totally fair. And I think that just totally speaks to the spectrum of taboo in your mind. And just pedophilia is a little bit worse, I think, on most people's scales than...
Calling someone and asking them, what are you wearing? And getting off on that.
Yeah, or just, just being a creep
Yeah,
and not
yeah.
actually being a rapist. I know, I totally get that. But in that same vein, this film takes these very ordinary people on paper. We got this middle-class therapist with his, I think, stay-at-home wife who takes care of the house. They have baseball practice. We have an IT guy, a call center girl, a wannabe writer. We have these very ordinary people that you could see in a Full House to some degree, but we exclusively see what happens behind closed doors and in the deeply perverted perspective on how to find, I guess, ultimately any happiness.
Yeah, it's almost like watching The Cosby Show your whole life and later finding out that Bill Cosby got in trouble for all these drugging and sexual assaulting accusations, and then all of a sudden that sitcom just feels a little bit different
Because we know what happened behind closed doors
because we
all
know
of a
what
sudden.
exactly. That's kind of eerie.
A lot of movies maybe fit the bill. If you can get on board immediately, the movie's going to hit a little better. And I feel like this has a little bit more in common with just the nature of comedy films. It is sort of a funny movie, but it's more of like a haha because that's true kind of thing.
Yeah. Christina cracked me up.
No, sure. But there's a level of genius here that I very much appreciate. And there's even a meta acknowledgement within our characters. Like Alan not wanting to hook up with Christina because, I mean, no, God knows what he's thinking, but because she's fat, because she's more boring than him, because she's a bigger loser, or whatever he's thinking kind of thing, when he's very much aware of that problem being his own, right?
Is he, though?
We start off the movie with that. He's got all these weird, gross ideas in his head about what he wants to do to women and stuff, but he's a boring person. He's even putting our therapist, Bill the one with the family, to sleep.
Yeah, he's thinking about like his grocery list or something
Yeah.
else.
And then immediately after that, we see Bill go to therapy, a therapist that needs therapy, right? And the poet who knows she's a fraud, Joy, the self-sabotager. And I really like the kind of sticking point we land with Joy because the song she's writing is played at the end by R.E.M. And so in another universe, she's actually somewhat of a successful music writer, but her song was actually hijacked by a much bigger artist.
Yeah.
And I think the self-awareness comes full circle when we are at the very end with the family, the three sisters and their family, when they're talking about Christina killing Pedro, and how Helen says something along the lines of, they used baggies and we all used baggies and that's why we can relate. And there's just a self-awareness in there that I think speaks to me on multiple levels, including the shallowness of just the nature of happiness and how anything and everything is going to sway you one way or the other. It's going to make you very happy for a minute, and the same exact thing can make you very unhappy the next. And almost how we're just looking for an excuse to make us feel a particular unspoken subconscious way that we have no control over. I guess we need to watch what we say here to even hint at this film being relatable. But I do think this film is deeply relatable on the angle of self-sabotaging and doing things we regret because we're aware enough that they are ultimately against our morals, but we can't help from, tapping into those vices. Being a little awkward and then going as far as being creepy and looking back at that and be like, wow, I was a creep. Not to say that we have any characters in here that reflect. That's an important part of our so-called source material, and that being Full House. We have no characters in Full House who learn anything, right? They don't reflect on their decisions outside of the bubble of what they were just taught by Joey or whoever. Because it is ultimately this echo chamber of success and happiness in a show like Full House, and here it's a echo chamber of self-destruction, ultimately, in having no self-control.
Yeah, I guess that was one of my problems with this because, and I like very much what you said about them actually being self-aware, because initially I thought they were not self-aware because, and maybe it's just me, self-awareness comes with learning something.
But that's the great irony, because when you do something, you feel gross about it. What is the likelihood of you changing? You're self-aware enough to understand what you did is a dumb decision at the very least, right? But what is the likelihood of you changing?
Hopefully high. Hopefully you should change.
That's that drive towards positivity and happiness that we don't achieve.
But you should work very hard every day to achieve it. You can't give up.
And I appreciate that. In people who think that way. That's good.
So a lot of people don't think that way. Is this a pessimistic movie?
I mean, sure. And I think a lot of people do think that way. But it also kind of plays up this perspective of, if you were to see people on their worst days, you would build this awful impression of whoever, right? But at the same time, exactly what you were saying, this is not a depiction of real individuals. They are exaggerated forms of just regular humans. They're just exaggerated in the other direction than something like Full House.
Right. Because none of these characters actually form any bonds with each other, and they're all trapped in their isolation and alienation. And like you said, this self-sabotage and this lying to yourself but not lying to yourself, because you are self-aware, but you're not self-aware enough to do something about it. But I'm sure you want to. I don't know. But what's very ironic in this film is that one of the most honest characters is Bill, the pedophile dad.
He's the most honest character, yeah.
And it's hilarious, but also kind of like, I don't know, it doesn't click in my head that this type of character is the most honest character.
It's one of the great moves of the film, because it brings this, especially within Bill and his side of the family, we see this element of humanity that is unheard of when it comes to rapists in films or murderers in films. They are the villain.
Right.
He's still not a good guy, obviously, but he's still a dad, and he realizes he has problems. He's a working person. He takes care of people. He's a therapist, right?
Yeah, this is a great example of humanizing a villain, for sure. Because as weird and awkward and disgusting that these conversations he's having with his kid, they're so honest and raw and open that it's I don't know how to feel.
Those conversations are the most Full House thing about this film to me, but in the other direction.
Yeah, right.
They're almost like a parent's kind of worst wonder of, like, I really hope my kid doesn't ask me anything about sex. I hope they just kind of figure it out, especially the details.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You can talk to your kids about protecting themselves, buying them condoms, buying them birth control, whatever they need. But that's it. You don't have to worry about the did you pleasure someone details about it. Did you feel like you were in love? Like, those kinds of things are the things you need to figure out by yourself. As a parent, I only need to make sure you don't get pregnant or you don't get them pregnant. And that's our level of worry, or at least our hope of question asking, like you said.
You brought up this point of isolation and alienation, and it's also one of these great elements of the film because our characters are deeply isolated from society, and it's one of these kind of self-fulfilling prophecies because they are alienating themselves, from a variety of different angles. Our poets, no one else gets them. We have this deeply disturbed voyeuristic pervert who can't connect because he's a closeted rapist, maybe? I don't know. Does he give rapey vibes, or is he just a deeply perverted person?
I think he's just a creep. And maybe he has these fascinations of having that kind of rape fantasy sex, not actually going with a rape, but kind of liking it like that in the bedroom.
Sure.
And then people don't feel comfortable admitting that they like those kinds of things in the bedroom. But you shouldn't, because that's up to you. Whatever you want to do in your bedroom. Thinking about it, I guess, would make you feel weird.
And we also have this, pedophile who likes young boys, who has a young boy and a family, and is doing something deeply illegal. So there's a lot of kind of innate societal kind of isolations built into that.
And this is what I mean about the details to these characters. Because after Alan has this conversation with Christina and they go home and we see them getting bed together, but this weirdo goes to bed fully clothed, even with his shoes, and lays on top of the cover. She's under the cover. She's in like a nightgown or something. I don't know really, because she's under the cover, but in bed clothes. And he's just laying there, all awkward, fully clothed, with his shoes on top of the bed sheet. It's like,
well, it's kind of funny, though, because that comes from the point of her not wanting to be touched. And there's almost an element of him respecting her there. It's just like, I don't know how to take this. This is a weird scenario, but we're getting something deeply respectful out of you at the same time.
Yeah. I know we mentioned one of the central relationships in this movie are three sisters. And it was so funny how condescending they were to Joy.
And it's even funnier because Joy's asking for it because she's got it all figured out from their perspective.
Right.
She's on the right track. And then they're very honest. Like, man, we thought you were going to be alone for the rest of your life and have no money, be a loser. It's like,
thanks. And it's a very good reflection on this interaction between siblings, because part of you wants them to do better in this world, but then part of you is also jealous of them doing better than you in this world. And I like that they take that out on Joy when they're not doing good.
And it's awesome because, like I was saying, they think Joy, the two sisters think Joy, because Joy tells them that she's got it all figured out. We've got the sister who is super middle class. She's got her own house. She's got kids. She goes to baseball practice. She's in love. She's the only normal character, which makes her stick out like a sore fucking thumb in this film.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got the artist sister who is living the life, but is arguably deeply more unhappy than the others.
Right. And she's like the attractive one, the successful one, the one with money, the one that has the fame, sort of. She'll say that guys fall over her. But then we have that scene when she and the suburban mom sister are at the restaurant, and it looked like she's about to take the check for her to pay and then gives it to her. And that scene just cracked me up, because here you are, you're famous, you're a celebrity, you're making all this money, you're so successful, but you're making your sister, who's middle class, who has all these kids to take care of, pay for your meal, when you were just kind of implying that you've got your shit together.
There's a self-awareness in her fraudulent,
Yeah. It's pretty good. I also like this feeling of people being oblivious to the world around them, to their surroundings. Just makes you think about what could be going on around you, and you're so self-absorbed that you don't catch it.
Yeah.
One of the examples in the movie would be when Bill is in his car masturbating to that magazine of little boys, and there's a family that walks by completely unaware.
Sure.
And it's just a bit disturbing seeing things like that, because now it's like, well, how many times have I walked around, a couple doing it in their car, or someone by themselves doing it in their car,
It's just another echo of this echo chamber that we all kind of partake in on our own. And even going as far as that rapist or murderer gets arrested who lives in your neighborhood, and you're like, I would see them every day and they seem like a normal person.
Right.
Like you have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, this man went to the PTO to his school. Like, he did all these normal things, like the baseball games.
That's what I'm saying. And this film does an excellent job in putting a fire into your ass of kind of self-reflecting at what a first impression can look like. And this film shows us many characters at their worst, and how that may not be fair to that individual, or just may be completely wrong.
Yeah, I really like that, because I'm struggling, or I was struggling a bit with the point of this film. And maybe that is the point, to look at all these things you're seeing, you're noticing that society does, and do something about it.
Sure, and the point to me is this deconstruction of how happiness is not a natural phenomenon to kind of run into. It is this artifice that we just chase after like our next high.
Right. Because none of these characters at any point achieve happiness. It's just this fleeting illusion of happiness that they think they're achieving.
Sure, and I think the closest one we get is the dad, the three sisters' dad, where he wants a really simple change of life to at the very least get a taste of something different. He just wants to separate. Right? And we saw how that exploded into they're going to divorce, and he doesn't necessarily want that.
Yeah, I almost took that as like he just wants to chill. He just wants to exist. Because he doesn't care for another woman. And even when he does get this other woman, when she seduces him, he doesn't even want to have sex with her. He doesn't care for this idea that you need a partner in life to be happy.
The three sisters' dad is the only character who is not innately isolated, but is seeking some kind of alienation. And is kind of that final hit to the nail of happiness is completely subjective to time and place. And obviously how you've been conditioned to believe in the first place.
Right. Why aren't you married? Why don't you have kids? Why don't you have these things that you're supposed to have at your age? It's not okay to want to be alone. It's not okay to not want to have kids. Oh my gosh, that one can't be stressed enough for women. I mean, it's up to the point that doctors are refusing to let women have surgeries to remove their, female reproductive systems. Because what if they do want kids later? But with some of these women, it's causing so much pain and so many issues, and they have decided they don't want kids. But that's such a weird thing to want that legally you feel like you have to protect them from that. Because our society is so strict on these rules.
Traditions.
These traditions, yeah, exactly.
Because the three sisters' dad is also the only character who is aware of their unhappiness and is actively trying to seek a different path. Everyone else is still self-absorbed in their filth and self-destructive motives, whether they think so or not, right?
Yeah, it's like that one friend who's always telling you about her cheating boyfriend and is always complaining about her cheating boyfriend, but you could just leave him. But it's almost juicier to have these things to gossip about with someone, to talk about with someone, to make them feel pity or sorry for you, or to just talk and reach out in general. Now you have an excuse to go bother someone with what's going on in your life, instead of actively making a choice to make it better. And we didn't talk about the mom a lot, but she was very dramatic and extra too, and that's also one of those great pulls at life, with moms tending to exaggerate their problems. Like, oh, your dad's divorcing me, but he's listening on the other line, and he's like, no, I'm not divorcing you. No one ever even brought up divorce. Like, what are you talking about? When we see her, she's just laying in bed, depressed. And it's just so funny. And then she's even sort of manipulating her daughters, making each of them feel like they're the only ones that know this dirty secret that's going on in the family. But it turns out all of them already really know. And just this gossip that's created around that, again, adding to that tension that these sisters already feel towards each other. And finding out that, oh, wow, okay, I thought mom let me in on this little secret, but turns out she's letting everyone in on this little secret. Just when you got that one glimpse of happiness that your dad or your mom found you the special one at this moment in time, but it wasn't even true.
And then it works in the reverse, and it makes you feel at unease with your sister or with your mom.
Yeah.
When in reality, it just shouldn't be that big of a deal, right?
Right.
But we are looking for that self-destruction.
Yes.
Constantly.
Yes.
We actually have a interesting ensemble of characters here, unlike Borderlands and Suicide Squad. I wanted to ask who your favorite was because mine is Helen because of her overt kind of meta type character. I like at one point she's actually thinking, man, I wish I was raped at one point in my life to write better poetry and whatnot. And then we have that scene where Alan comes over to Helen's after some foreplay and they sit on a couch and Alan slowly, very slowly reaches out to Helen. And then at some point Helen's like, this isn't working out. And then, of course, when she goes to eat lunch with her other sister, then at the very end when they're all eating together and they're talking about the baggies and stuff, everything that comes out of her mouth is wonderful. She's my favorite character. If you can have a favorite character, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I'm struggling with. I don't think I have a favorite character. There's bits and pieces about each character that tickle me, that make me laugh, that I enjoyed about them. Like Christina not getting the hint that Alan doesn't want you, up to the point where she's in the house and he yells at her, like, get out of here. And she's all crying and leaving. That was hilarious. Or when that guy, I don't know what nationality he was it Russian?
Yeah, I think so, Vlad.
Yeah, Vlad takes advantage of Joy in that whole sequence. That was hilarious.
It's funny, too, because it almost feels like she's not enjoying it, but she's trying to enjoy it kind of thing, too, which is great.
Yeah, like someone's paying attention to me, so okay.
This is right. This is supposed to be good.
And then she's all kind of like, okay, she's like entering that lovey-dovey stage where you're just walking and everything just feels so nice. And then someone's wife beats the shit out of you and you're like, oh, okay, oh, well, now what? You know, it was hilarious. And even Bill, even though his character was really fucked up, those things exist. Those things are out there. We have perverts out there. We have people out there who like kids, and that's so sad and unfortunate, but it's the truth.
But there's something really powerful in his, I guess, come to Jesus moment of telling his wife about his naughty actions and, you know, entering that space and not being in denial.
Yeah. But I was going more for some of the situations he was in, kind of cracked me up, no matter how fucked up this subject is. Like when they were at the baseball game and he saw Johnny
for the first time.
He saw Johnny for the first time going to batter up, and they play this like.
Yeah, it's almost like seeing that girl next door, or the girl moves in, and you're like, who is that?
Like this first date kind of, like, yeah, something like that. Like you're falling in love.
It's like this is a 10-year-old boy.
Yeah, we're zooming in on Johnny, and it's this 10-year-old boy, and you're like, what the fuck? And I'm not gonna lie, that cracked me up a little bit. It was like so disturbingly funny.
That's that Full Houseness coming out, especially with Bill. It's all over his character and his scenes when he's at home and stuff.
Yeah, and his dream, that's when I knew this movie was like, what the fuck am I in for? When he was telling his therapist about his dream, and he's walking out, there's picnic, there's an old couple flirting with each other, like, oh, that's nice, old people still have love, blah, blah, blah. And then he pulls out a gun and starts killing everybody. And I'm like, what is going on? I mean, that it was funny.
No, and that's a good point because that's captured in the dream. Only highlighting this subconscious inescapability of just wanting to destroy the good things in life.
Yeah, and it just made me think how honest and trusting people are with their therapists, where when they normally wouldn't be this honest and trusting with people who actually care about them and would want them to truly change. And there's just something there about talking to a stranger about your feelings is easier.
Right, because we see the exact same thing played out with Alan, but Alan's so boring that Bill's falling asleep.
Yeah, and I will say Alan is probably my least favorite character.
Oh, he's my second favorite.
No, he's too something for me. It might have been when he was trying to paste that postcard on the wall with his bodily fluids that just...
Oh, that sells him.
That just turned me off.
I just wanted to point out that this film was controversial when it came out, and they didn't show it at the Sundance Film Festival, probably for a variety of reasons, but the fact that they didn't show it feels deeply ironic, because again, there's this intent on, to some degree, showing this mirror to the point of at least deconstructing the artifice of happiness and like I said, kind of neutralizing the Full Houses of the world. So to me, there seems to be this necessity that one must watch this to kind of ground yourself. In a film like this being rejected at a film festival like the Sundance Festival, I might go as far as saying feels almost propagandistic and trying to control some kind of image.
Yeah, it almost seems silly because you don't have to watch the movie if you really don't want to. Was it banned? Is that the problem? I'm assuming it's just purely due to Bill's character being a pedophile. And maybe Alan.
Yeah, I think Alan and Bill are the targets.
Because I understand that. I understand that this is very uncomfortable and these subjects are very taboo. But this is also an art form where people are allowed to express that. You don't have to support it. You don't have to watch it. And in no way is this movie supporting what these characters are doing.
No, in fact, it makes humans just look gross.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine that's a big struggle for a lot of filmmakers trying to make movies with controversial subjects like this and having places like the Sundance Film Festival being like, nah, man, that's a little too messed up for us. So yeah, I mean, I get that. It's hard because part of me wants to say, yeah, let's not even talk about that. But then I would be part of the problem for not wanting to admit that this exists out there.
No, totally. And you'd also be part of the problem in isolating these types of characters.
Yes.
And having them implode on the worst of themselves.
Like you said, how would you feel if someone met you at your worst? Or if someone met you solely on knowing one thing about you and that's the worst thing you could have ever done in your life?
Totally. It's kind of funny to maybe say, but rapists are human too. Terrorists are human too. Bill Cosby is still human, and we should treat them as much. Well, man, thank you very much for watching this joy of a movie and talking about it here today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Do you have a budget guess for this 1998 film? Very indie.
Oh, shit. Okay. Maybe I'm gonna change what I had. I had 15, but now I think I'm gonna go like 5.
It says here that it was $2.2 million.
Oh, I was way off if I would have gone with 15.
And it went on to make $5.7 million.
How? They showed this at the box office, but they didn't show this at film festivals? I'm just surprised it made money.
Yeah, I don't know where you show a movie like this. I mean,
Yeah.
I would show it everywhere, but if it didn't go to the Sundance Festival, I would assume it wouldn't go to any festival, but I don't know.
Yeah, I
have
don't
no
know.
idea.
That's crazy.
Over on Letterboxd with 111,000 people, they weighed in at a 4.0.
Holy crap. People like this movie.
Yeah, it's a super loved movie. For the folks who have seen it, I guess.
I guess so. I guess so. Yeah, I'm
telling you, it's one of those things that if you know kind of thing.
Yeah.
And everyone else is going to be like, just like, what the fuck?
Yeah. I think I'm still more towards the what the fuck than if you know. There are a lot of things I like about this movie, but I couldn't get past some of the boringness of it, some of the longness of it, I guess, that weighed me down a little too much. With scenes like the introduction, with scenes like Alan reaching out and it taking 30 fucking seconds for her to respond to that. How are you immediately not opening the door and saying nope and shutting the door, you know? And I understand there's a point to his slow burn.
Sure.
I really do. I get the uncomfortableness. I was uncomfortable at some points.
It's a realism, I think.
Maybe I'm moving too fast in this world. Maybe I need to chill. Maybe I need to calm the fuck down. Because if someone took that long to respond to me, I'm already like, it's shaking them. What's wrong with you? Answer.
That's that unease that you're supposed
Yeah.
to tap into while watching this film.
Yeah, I guess.
And it's just not clicking in the right way for you.
It's
Not
not-
finding the happiness.
I'm not finding the happiness. These characters, although great performances, great characters, in fact, were not my type of characters. I don't know. I don't know on this film. I don't know. I really don't. My initial impression got a hold of me a little too much than actually thinking about the film. So maybe I need to sit down with it more.
Didn't we just talk about first impressions?
Yeah, I mean, there's some truth though. Obviously, I need to sit down with myself and work on my first impressions. Maybe I need to rewatch with knowing what I know about it now. Probably won't.
I like it when films are kind of bulletproof in that way and they write themselves out of every corner to the point where there are no corners. And it's hard to digest those kinds of films, I think.
So no score for me.
Oh, a no score.
No
Okay.
score.
This is a solid 4.0 for me. This is a wonderful movie.
No. In the beginning of the film, you said everyone must watch this film. And everyone that knows this film loves it. And your score and the Letterboxd score definitely prove that. I thought you were just exaggerating, but no, obviously there's some love to this film. But I don't know about the world being ready for a film like this, even though it's been 26 years.
All right, man. Well, thank you again for watching this movie and talking about it here today. And thank you guys for listening to this episode of The Filmsteins. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Remember, we post every Monday and Friday with brand new episodes of The Filmsteins on all of our free feeds, and every other Wednesday on patreon.com/Filmsteins for Patreon exclusive episodes, like our recent episode where we discussed the two Aladdin films from 1992 and 2019. Our next free public episode will be on Yorgos' Kinds of Kindness from earlier this year. Can't wait for that.
Yorgos, you say? Poor Things?
Yes.
Okay.
Please look forward to that. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas on our Patreon as well. Come subscribe, come write in, come request a movie. Go rate us on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to our YouTube, please. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much. But until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of The Filmsteins. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and gained some new insights and perspectives on the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon at patreon.com/Filmsteins, and follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching and keep loving the magic of movies. This is The Filmsteins, signing off.